as follows. We will proceed with the paper presentations as in the program. 20 minutes each. Is that? Yeah, at most. And then we open up to discussion of the three papers at the same time. And that should give us because was the, okay, thank you for that correction. Yeah, okay. So let's be consistent in terms of the instructions given. 10 minutes, and then we'll have the discussion and open up to the floor. I understand this session is also online, so I hope we will be able also to accommodate some questions from those who are attending online. All right, without further ado, if I can ask Yusuf Emre, Akgunduz, you're the second. You're Ugur Aytun, right? Okay, so please present your paper, The Impact of Minimum Wage Shock on Robot Adoption in Turkey.
I'm happy to be here. I thank you be here for this session. I am Ugur Aytun from Kütahya Dumlupınar University. And as you can see from the slides, we are investigating the effect of minimum wage shock on the robot adoption in Turkey. Oh, this doesn't work. Okay, can I pass this slide? Okay. Okay. Thank you. As you know from the news or the papers, usage of robots in the manufacturing industry increased exponentially. According to IFR dataset, the operational stock of robots has tripled since 2010, and this transformative shift led scholars to research what kind of technological shocks affects the employment and wages, and this effect is this is an empirical issue, and some studies found that robots displace the workers and reduces the wages, which means the disallocation mechanism. On the other hand, some studies found that productivity mechanism occurs and led to increase the employment and wages of workers. Okay. On the other hand, determinants of robot adoption, particularly cost-related variables, are not extensively studied due to two main issues. First one is, as you know, difficult to measure the number of robots of a firm in an industry, and we could not track the number of robots in many countries. Another issue for this link between the effect of cost-related variables on the robot adoption is that there is kind of endogeneity between these two variables. And luckily, in Turkey, from the custom data, we have robot product in the custom data. We can track the number of robots of firm in a given time. On the other hand, we have a cost-related shock in Turkey, which is the minimum wage shock in 2016, and Turkish government increased minimum wage by 32.5 per as natural experiment and investigate how this kind of cost-related shocks affects the decision of firms to adopt robots. Okay, and we are using the employee data to identify the minimum wage workers just before the minimum wage shock, and we match this data with the custom data, which we can track the robot importer firms. Okay, and observing the impact of this kind of shock on the robot adoption may be important in a developing country because Turkey is at the low number of robots compared to developed countries. On the other hand, Turkey is also developing its manufacturing base. Okay, and our identification is based on difference in difference estimator with the continuous treatment framework, as I provide you more information. Okay, in the literature, there are limited evidence for the impact of the minimum wage shock on the robots or automation. There are two papers. First one is Genc et al. They conducted this study for the Germany. In Germany, government announced the first minimum wage implementation in 2016, and they found that these shocks increased the likelihood of adopting robot. Second paper is Fan et al. Is implemented for China, and they use the regional variation of minimum wage, and they found consistent findings. Before I provide you my specification, let me show some descriptives. Okay, in the manufacturing sector, 465,000 firms in manufacturing industry, and most of them are zero employment or self-employment firms, and micro firms whose employment is between 0 to 10, and other firms are small, medium, and large firms. By the way, I used the OECD employment classification for the firm size. Okay, number of robot importers in the 2009 to 10 to 9. There are 716 firms, and as country, really, okay. 716 firms, and one of third is large firms, and large firms is majority of them. And let me skip to my identification. As I said, we employ difference with continuous framework. My outcome variables takes two forms. First one is extensive margin. It's a binary outcome variable. If a firm imports a robot, it takes a value of 1, and after that period, it still takes 1. Other outcome is intensive margin, and I accumulated the robot imports of firm each year. Okay. My variable of interest. Sorry. My variable of interest is a minimum wage share, which shows the minimum wage employment of firm in 2015. Okay, and I interact this variable with the firm size, a task share of firms, and R&D. Okay, and here is my baseline results. First three column shows that minimum wage share insignificantly affects the robot adoption of firms in the extensive and intensive margins. And when I interact this variable with the firm size, and I see that medium and large firms are more likely to adopt robots, okay, which is different from the other papers, okay? And I interacted this variable with the blue color employment share, and I see that large firms with blue color employment are more likely to adopt firms, and this effect predicts the robot adopt intensity. Okay, and I interact this minimum my variable of interest with the R&D expenditure, and I see that, as you see from these columns in the second line, and firms with devoting to research and development are more likely to adopt robots. Okay, and this is my conclusion. Minimum wage shock insignificantly affect robot adoption. On the other hand, firm size matters in this tendency, and task composition of firms is also an important issue to comprehend to robotization decision of firms. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Just for clarification, you mentioned that you got your robots data from customs. So this assumes robots are only imported?
Yes. Around the world, some firms in Germany and South Korea is exporting this robot.
So there are no robots being produced in Turkey? Is that
almost zero?
Okay, thank you. That's good clarification. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Our second paper about Egypt. Maybe you can also introduce yourselves, 1 or 2 lines. I think that would be good for the benefit of the audience.
This one.
To operate this soon that will happen, I think.
This one? Okay. لازم نعمل شير. Okay.
Of course, no reflection of minimum wages in Morocco.
This one. PDF, oui. PDF, mais il faut le...
Share من الزوم.
Il faut l'exécuter en plein écran.
Share for Zoom.
Non?
Document.
Mais il faut le faire donc en plein écran. En plein écran. I think this one. Mode plein écran, c'est ça. Donc ça fonctionne comme ça. Okay.
Okay, so you already used your first 3 minutes. No, time starts from now. Relax.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Hatem Jemmali. I thank you for joining us. I'm Hatem Jemmali from Tunisia, Associate Professor in Economics and Econometrics. And I will present a paper on understanding change in wage inequality in Egypt, evidence from Quantile Analysis. I will try to, in this presentation, to provide some background and motivation for the study and some insights on wage inequality trends and data and variables. I will give also some clarification about the empirical methodology to finish with the results and the conclusion and some policy implication. You may know that Egypt have undergone some significant economic and political change over the past 2 decades, including economic liberalization reforms beginning in the early 1990s, and the global finance crisis in and the global financial crisis of 2008, the political and upheavals and economic stagnation following the Arab Spring, the currency also flotations in 2016, and some austerity measures like subsidy reductions and public spending cuts, and also the COVID-19 sanitary crisis triggered in 2020. The objective of these studies and why we have chosen Egypt's and wage inequality to gain insights into how changes in economic policies affect wage inequality over time and the challenges faced by different groups of workers in the labor markets, and also some insights on the effectiveness of policy responses aimed at addressing these challenges while balancing economic stability and social cohesion. So the main objectives of this study is to investigate the trend of wage inequality in Egypt over the period, the 2 decades, encompassing various political and economic events, and to determine the factors driving changes in wage inequality across the wage distribution. And this is provided by the Quantile Analysis. And also to estimate, and this is one of the main contribution of this study, to estimate the contributions of different demographic, economic, and social factors to the change in wage inequality. To answer all these questions and to attain these objectives, we make use of a set of waves of the Egyptian labor force surveys for the 2 decades and the intertemporal decomposition based on the Quantile Analysis and the FFL approach of Firpo, Fortin, and Lemonnier. So when we look at the trend of wage inequality in Egypt over this considered period, we may show that there is an increase in the nominal wage with a fluctuation of the real one. And when we look at the Gini coefficients, we find that also there is fluctuation that shows some fluctuation in both real and in the wage values, and also in the inequality, the wage inequality. We aim in this study to understand this fluctuation and to find the main contributors that drive this variation and this change. We find, as I know now, as I shall know, that the nominal wage shows a generally upward rise trend throughout the periods, with brief dips in the 2011, the revolution period, and for the next period, 2017-2018. The real wage largely mirrored nominal wage trends in 2016, thanks to a relatively stable inflation rate. And the second event, the most important event in this period, is the flotation events. The 2016 currency flotation led to a surge in inflation, peaking at 30%. This caused a significant decline in real wage until 2018. When we look at the wage inequality, we found that the Gini coefficients remained relatively stable between 0.3 and 0.4 until 2016, indicating a period of stable wage inequality as shown in the graphs. Following this 2016 currency flotation, we find that, and the decline in real wage, the Gini coefficient dropped below 0.3, which shows a decline in wage inequality. So further analysis is needed to explain this change and variation of wage inequality. Here we show the trend of change of nominal and real wage for selected percentiles. Why? Because we will conduct after that a quantile analysis to show an explanation and to understand this change throughout the wage distributions. We show that there is an increase for the nominal wage percentiles, but for the real wage, we find that there is a fluctuation with rise and stabilizations, and after that, a decline, which depends on the event I showed before. So these are some remarks on these graphs that I talked now. A number of Egyptian labor surveys, which provide nationally representative data sets with comprehensive information on worker earning as well as their socioeconomic and demographic characteristics. For the targeted samples, we limit our study on wage salary workers. And this group, why? Because this group is most likely to be affected by labor market distortions and policies. For the period, we have chosen the 2 decades because there is a lot of events on this period, in this period, and we have grouped years to increase the size of samples used, as I will show when shown how we conduct the empirical analysis. For the key variables used in this study, we use the dependent variables, of course, the log of real hourly wage, which is the main drivers of earning inequality, and a set of covariates, independent variables, the age, the education, gender, relation to household size, household head, the sector of employment and employment status, the social security enrollment, and the urban-rural location. Here, we conduct a descriptive analysis which show the main characteristics of our samples. So I will turn to the empirical analysis, the model we use it. As I said, the procedures is based on the unconditional quantile regressions to look throughout the wage distributions, this change, and to understand this change of wage inequality. So the model is based, as I say, on the FFL approach to look at the decomposition of variation between two periods, T1 and T0, and to decompose this difference in two components, the wage structure effects and the composition effects. And after that, we will look on the main drivers of each part of this disparity between, of this change, temporal decomposition between the two periods. But for the results, there is a lot of results. I will try to be shorter. We find that there is a lot of variation between variables. We find, for example, that age returns to age being significant but very small in impacting inequality, mainly during the initial period, which depend in the periods. Also for the tenor, the experience, we find that negative and significant impact on wage inequality, particularly at the top of the distribution in the initial periods. We find also that for the gender pay gap, a significant contributor, which is the main contributors to wage inequality, shows a slight decrease across the wage distribution and over time. For the educations, which is one of the main contributors of this wage change, we find that returns to education rise across the wage distribution, but decline over time. The highest returns are observed for high wage earners, starting at these levels initially and declining in the final period. Okay. As I said, there is a lot of results, but just these figures, these graphs that show the wage structures effects, the variation of wage structure effects and the composition effects of the Gini decompositions. So there is a variation between periods that show that fluctuations, variables, and also of wage inequality over all the periods and throughout the wage distribution also. All these results, we have key insights, some conclusion based on the decomposition and the regression results that show that while global trends indicate a rise in wage inequality, Egypt has experienced an overall decline over the past 2 decades, particularly before the Arab Spring. Also, change in wage structures returns to various characteristics appear at the main drivers behind change in wage inequality. And also for educations, we find that education emerged as a significant contributors to reducing inequality over other factors such as employment in the public sectors, full-time and part-time status, and regional residency exerts varying impact as well. So, based on this conclusion, we have some policy implications. The most important one is to promote decent works and fair wage for part-time workers and to strengthen social security coverage by augmenting the scope of social security provision to encompass the broader spectrums of workers, particularly those concept in precarious employment arrangement. Thank you, and I apologize for this delay.
Okay, thank you very much. And last but not least, Serife Genc Ileri, is that right? Have I pronounced correct? So you're present, yeah. Agglomeration, economies and wage differences, evidence from Turkey.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Serife. I think this is my about fifth time joining the ERF conference, but first time in Rabat. And very delighted to be here. Okay. So this is joint work with my PhD students, Mohammed Moiz. I don't know. Is it on? Yes, it's on. Okay, so this is joint work with my PhD students, Mohammed Moiz. And, okay, another introduction. So I'm a professor, assistant professor of economics at Istanbul Technical University. And Mohammed is currently a researcher in Michigan University. So, okay, so what do we mean by agglomeration economies? So cities are expanding around the globe at fast rates. And this increase in the size of cities results in some benefits which arise from the concentration of economic activity. So these advantages which arise because firms and industries are clustered together in a particular region is studied under what we call the agglomeration economy. So what kind of benefits are we talking about? So there are the cost advantages. So there are, when firms and industries are clustered together, there are intermediate producers in proximity. And there's internal economies of scale among these intermediate producers. So there are also labor market advantages. So there is the common labor market pool, which makes it easier for workers to find jobs. And employer-employee matching is much easier under this clustered economies. So there are also knowledge spillovers. So there is sharing of ideas among workers. So the within industry one, we call localization effects. The between industry one are called the urbanization effects. So, of course, the impact, like the agglomeration economies, have been studied vastly in the for the case of developed countries, but there is limited literature in developing countries, and even more limited for the case of Turkey. So we use a novel data set, which is available by the Industry and Technology Ministry, just like the one used in the first paper presented here. And our objective is to unveil some factors other than firm and worker characteristics which affect the wages and productivity of workers. And we would like to shed light on the productivity or wage differences which arise from the increase in density, specialization, and diversity. So here are some of the questions we are trying to address. Of course, this is like very, early draft of this paper. So all comments and feedback are welcome. So what are the questions that we are trying to address? How does the number of workers per square kilometer affect the wage premiums? Does a higher level of specialization or diversity have great impact on productivity? Moreover, is competition good or bad for productivity or wages? Okay. So as I said before, there are two types of agglomeration effects. There is the industry concentration, localization effect, and increase in the density of economic activity. So this urbanization occurs mostly as a result of cost savings for firms due to the size of the firms, and since they have access to a wider portfolio of goods and services outside their respective industries. And localization occurs due to savings for firms which result from the sharing of infrastructure and specialized labor pool. Also, as I said before, there is the knowledge spillovers where firms can learn about new ideas and technologies more frequently in larger markets. So regional wage differences may occur due to three main reasons in the literature as listed by Combs et al. Composition of the labor market, differences in the presence of non-human endowments, and spatial proximity of firms to other firms. So workers tend to spatially sort themselves based on the supply and demand for specific competences. And so Harvey in 1981 also states that agglomeration results in cost reductions through enabling of firms to enjoy collective economies of scale. Also in Glazer et al., they look at the Marshall-Error-Romer model to model the concentration of an industry in a region and how it promotes and facilitates spillover knowledge. And according to Porter et al., competition is better for growth. So firms producing in similar or complementary products, they produce positive agglomeration externalities. So these are the different channels through which agglomeration can occur, and this is like a list of the papers which look at those different channels. There is the sharing channel, where infrastructure is used more efficiently in larger cities, and agglomeration may lead to self-sustaining infrastructure. There is the matching channel, where large cities imply a larger labor pool and improved matching. And so some papers find evidence of that. I'm not going to go through them one by one. And there's the learning channel, where workers learn from one another, and rate of technological change might be faster, spurring knowledge agglomeration. And city size is found to be also highly correlated with productivity. And individuals in urban areas may have higher education, better skills, so rendering them more productive. So there is limited literature in Turkey, as I mentioned. So there is one paper by Özgüzel, and it uses administrative data set provided by SGK, where they provide the total number of workers by year and sector between 2008 and 2013. So it's a matched, it's a data set which is aggregated at industry and NUTS 3 level, unlike ours, which uses firm level data. Okay, so what are the variables that we are using, extracting from the enterprise information system? So of course we have the log of daily wages, we have the age of the worker, gender. Unfortunately, we don't have an education variable, but there is the occupation. So, and ILO matches the occupation to education categories based on the skill levels of the occupation. So we just use that matching that ILO provides. So we have a firm size dummy, industry dummy, a region dummy, and year dummy. So we use data between 2014 and 2019. This is a panel data. So we don't use the earlier data because it doesn't provide information on the occupation of the workers. Sorry, I skipped. One more, I think. Okay. Okay, I just wanted, okay. So we have different indicators for agglomeration. So we have, in fact, 4 different agglomeration indicators. We are using specialization, which is the share of employment in a specific industry compared to the total employment in that region. So the higher the specialization index, the more concentrated an area is in terms of industry. We have the diversity of a region. High value means the region is diversified, whereas the low value indicates this, the region has a high concentration in a few industries. And competition index, it shows whether the regional employment is concentrated among a few firms or spread out. Low value indicates low competition, and a value close to 1 indicates intense competition. Okay? And lastly, density. Employment density is used to capture the urbanization effects. A high employment density means there is high urbanization due to a concentration of people. Okay, so this I will show now some geographical distribution of diversity levels for 2014 and 2019. So it looks like in both time periods, the highest levels of diversity are observed in the southern two cities, in the far east and central of the country. Cities close to Istanbul are more specialized and they host a smaller number of industries. And in central parts, there's also lower diversity, where this trend continues as we move further east, with the exceptions of some cities, some inner and, no, not inner, Ankara, Sivas are in the inner part, Elazığ, Hakkari, Van are in the south. Okay. So in 2019, more diversification of industries is observed in southern cities, and the overall diversity across Turkey has increased over this period. So when we look at the competition very fastly, there is high competition among firms in the west parts of the country, and it decreases as one moves across the region towards east. So there, of course, there are a few exceptions, and the competition is becoming fiercer as one moves across time. Okay, and employment density, it's an important factor in wage differences. The biggest three cities show the highest employment density as expected, and the employment density in the eastern regions continues to decline, showing migration possibly from these cities into the larger western cities. So what's our methodology? We have this two-step estimation. In the first stage, we estimate a typical Minster equation. And in this, so here we have the wages, H square, and as a proxy for education, we have the occupation. And in the second, so this one is important. So this gamma IRT. In the stage 2, we regress this gamma IRT on what we call these agglomeration indicators. Okay, so controlling for year, firm size, and sector fixed effects. So, so we are using a 6-year data set, as I said before. And these are the results of our first stage estimation. I mean, in fact, nothing too exciting here. This is like, typical Minster equations. Maybe I should present the second stage estimation. So what we see here is like using different type of agglomeration indicators, how are they affecting the wage differences? So it looks like the more diverse a region is and the more dense a region is, this will benefit the workers more and increase their wage premiums. So we don't find any significant impact of specialization, and we find a negative and significant impact of competition. So it looks like competition is hurting the workers in terms of the wage premiums they are getting. So this is like a summary of the results. It looks like agglomeration economies play an important role in determining wages within the country. We don't find any significant impact of specialization. Mixed results for diversity have been found in developing countries, and our study shows a positive impact of diversity. And regarding competition, as I said, we find a negative impact, and regarding density, we find a positive, significant impact on wages. So to conclude, wage differences in Turkey across regions exist, where high wages are earned in more urban settings. We find that density has a positive impact in explaining the wage differences, and diversity shows a much higher positive effects. So our results point to significant impacts of these knowledge spillovers from diversity. Of course, for further research, one has to dig deeper into this self-selection, channel. So examine how individuals who move between these different cities fare in terms of wages. Also, what's the effect of economic zones on agglomeration externalities? An interesting further future research question to explore. And how does infrastructure affect agglomeration in Turkey is another thing we plan to look in the future. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for these three presenters. Now is an opportunity for Touhami Abdelkhalek to discuss the three papers, and then we'll open to the floor.
Hi. It's not a robot, it's a him. Hi, everybody. You are welcome in our campus. I'm Touhami Abdelkhalek. I'm from University, Mohammed VI University here in this campus. You are welcome. I enjoy all the three papers I read twice, or I prepared some comment of the three papers. The first one is the impact of wage shock in Turkey, if minimum wage shock in Turkey. The paper, as you see, deal with a very good problem that is arising and will arise more and more in time. I think the first part is the paper is well written with a very good summary and introduction. The paper is generally well articulated, all the part of the paper. It's clearly not complete, and I encourage all authors to finish and to complete the paper. It's, for me, it's important. The authors say to understand the impact on change in the minimum wage on robotization, the causality is clear in one sense. It's the impact of change of minimum to the robotization and not the other. It's not the effect of robotization on employee, just to be sure what is the question treated. A difference in difference panel approach was used. Several variables of interest, including one is a binary variable rate, and some problem with this. I think there is some technical problem with this in this situation when we are using diff-in-diff approaches. So in the paper, the authors includes a number of fixed effect for group sizes because they have group sizes, and for this reason they are using only a linear probability model and not a probability model in the analysis. Okay, because they have many. Okay, found no significant impact on shock on robot adoption in general. This is the important result. The minimum wage shock does not significant affect decision the impact of adopt robot, and the conclusion depend on the company, medium, large, and small companies. This is the conclusion. I believe, for suggestion for the paper, I believe to present more clearly the analysis, in particular when looking at the data. And looking at the data, the number of firms adopted, the percentage, this is clearly a percentage, it's not an error, it's not a mistake. It's the percentage of firms adopted. Look at this, it's too low to look what is the situation. The tools is not, I don't know if you understand the situation. It's not clear for me. That's the tools we can use in this situation. So I propose to restrict the analysis for the more on a sample when we can draw some results. There is a passage in the paper can be against the author. The passage here, I think you have to see exactly because this is it's a citation from the paper. Only the fewer firms importing robots tend to have fewer minimum wage employees. So if there is no minimum wage in firms, so it's clear we cannot have impact if we change because there is no minimum wage in the firms, the big firms. So we cannot anticipate the impact. This can change very mainly at the conclusion of the analysis. And when you are using the linear probability model, you are clearly on with heteroscedasticity and you cannot test for that. Okay, so I think there is some thing to look at. So, some proposition for the paper. The first one, because we have the interest variable, and we have the difference from size of firms, we can use at least one way ANOVA approach in the first step. The second one, we can use a domino stochastic for the three, because we have, for the continuous variable, we can use more than that, and we can use a domino stochastic to see exactly if there is a difference of the. I think we can improve. There is any other philosophical questions, and to see what's the mechanism when we change from and using the robot, if there is a variation of price of the two factors, and to see. So for the second paper, Hatem, Hatem and co-authors are looking the dynamic of inequality in Egypt from the panel data. They found the observed change is wage inequality is mainly attributed to change in return structure. This is the main results from this. They are in the methodology side. They are using the Osaka blended decomposition with a version, a more detailed version of the paper. I think in the paper is not clear exactly, it's too scarce in the presentation of the methodology. It's clear. I think we can add some detail on the methodology. We cannot understand your method only reading the paragraph and they are looking for the approach on some user, the Gini coefficient, interquartile, and distribution of log of variables. Okay. And what the author found that the real wage exhibit an upward trend over. So there is 2 periods maybe for the results, and the increase was followed by decrease when the national currency was floated in Egypt. So 2 parts. And I love that the last part in your paper, Hatem, is to explain what the results. It's very important part because there is an explanation. Not only we stop on after we have the results, the econometric level, but there is a very good part in your paper where you attempt to explain your results. I love this part. Okay. Okay, Hatem, I propose you to see, because you have a panel data you have first time and the last period, we can use an incidence curve like this one you are using. It's to use the incidence curve proposed by Ravallion and Chen, and we are using in poverty analysis to look the 2 distribution. It's too direct, and we have exactly this. We can anticipate the same results. You see my point? Just use the logic of incidence curve to infer how, by quantile, how the gain in the variable of interest, the wage is. It's a direct way we can use. I don't understand, and I have a problem. Ragi will give us. You are using the panel data of. It's not panel. More than that, you are using separate, and you are using the difference on nominal and real wage for workers, right? Only real wage. How can you, no, in some graphics we see the 2. Yeah, in this descriptive it is the 2, if we can have the difference on the evolution of nominal and real wage. It cannot be, because it's how we calculate the real wage. It's only a constant, right? We are using a deflator. So the inequality must be the same. I don't understand your graph. If you are using, what is the definition of real wage from the survey? If we have the survey and we are using a deflator to obtain a real wage, so the 2 variable is a constant and the Gini coefficient must be the same. I don't understand. Est-ce que tu vois ce que je veux dire, Hatem? So, for the, I have no time for the last paper. With reading it, I understand more the Turkish economy because I don't know it. It's a very interesting paper, and I hope we can use the same approach for the Moroccan cases. We are looking for that because we have some researcher in ERF. You're interested? Yes, I know. And we have some colleagues here, and we are looking for the same, because we have a regionalization program, and we are looking, I don't know if we have all what needed data, like, because for that Turkish case, your cases, it's very important because you have access to many data. I am not sure that we can. And in what you are doing, I like your constrict a very interesting data set. For your result is, as you said, it's ongoing work. So I don't discuss for the results, but I encourage you to finish the paper. It's a very interesting paper in a policy-oriented thing. And in Morocco, I think we have to deal with the same. Thank you. I hope. Thank you. I hope.
Thank you very much. Well, let me invite the presenters to make a response to the comments made briefly first, 2 minutes each, and then we'll open up. Don't forget your questions. We'll come back to the floor, and also we'll encourage anybody online, if they have questions, to please field their questions. I'm sure somebody is monitoring those online. So 2 minutes each of the presenters, if you wish to address the comments that were made. We start with you. Go ahead.
Okay.
Is it on? Is the microphone on?
Yeah, okay. Can I answer your questions, okay? Yes, you're right that large firms have a similar share of minimum wage employment. And I'm working on this issue, but large firms are more diverse in terms of their employment. One solution because 501 or to 600 firms may have more minimum wage workers, and I'm gonna work on this issue. On the other hand, I will be considering your solutions, okay, and I thank you for your remarks.
This is obviously a work in progress, so
Yeah.
comments are well taken on board. I think that was a very pertinent comment made. Okay, over to you.
Thank you, Touhami, for these valuable comments. For the methodology section, I agree with you that it needs some to extend and add some details about this intertemporal decomposition approach, which is a generalization of the classical decomposition approach. For the problem, the issue of real and nominal wage. This is only for the descriptive analysis. So for the descriptive analysis, we calculate, we show the trends of nominal wage, and after that we calculate, we use the consumer price index to deflate this nominal one to get the real one. But after for the quantile analysis and the regressions and the decomposition analysis, we use the real wages to observe and to contribute to show, to explain these changes and look at the main contributors of these changes. For the incidence curve, I think that it's good suggestions, and we will look on these suggestions and try to include this in the empirical analysis. Okay, thank you for all these comments.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Abdelkhalek, for your comments. Of the draft of the paper, and we are aware that we need to link our results more with the policy recommendations and maybe think a little bit more about why do we have these results. So why do we have, for example, negative impact of competition on wage differences? So that we are aware of. At this stage, it's only a presentation of the results, but that's the biggest, thing we are planning to achieve to finish this paper. And once we finish, we'll be happy to share our complete paper with you. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we heard the word humility in the first session. We see this in practice, so it's good that the comments are acknowledged, especially at this stage when you're still working on your papers. I'm going to open up 3 questions at a time. Please make sure you specify which paper you're referring to. I hope we'll have at least 2 rounds, and as I said, we will also try to include online questions. So can you just put your hands up so that I can see? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 so far, and there's 1 question online as well. So let me start from the closest. Go ahead, you please.
Very interesting papers, and I thank all of the presenters for interesting presentations and topics. And my question is, what on the first paper presented by Ugur on adoption of robotics, and as well as on the last papers from Serife on economics of agglomeration. And my question specifically is on the data used. Ugur did not mention anything about the data, and Serife said that we use the same data. What data is this? Ministry of Technology and the industry is mentioned by Serife, but what is this data? Is this the result of a survey? Which years does it pertain? I just would like to have some information about the data used.
Thank you, Abdelkhalek, and thank you also to all the presentator. I have only one question. It's a Serife paper. So when it's very, I guess also, and I have exactly also the same thinking, that it will be great if we can do the same kind of research here in Morocco, and not only in Morocco, but as you know, we have in the region, I think we share the same phenomena in the region. Is about congestion. It's one of the biggest negative externality about agglomeration. So, do you think you have any idea to introduce any data about traffic, for example, traffic in the big city? And I think it will, because you at this time, and I hope you have a good impact, positive impact, but you know that with this congestion, we have a huge negative impact on growth. Thank you.
I'm going to be even-handed and give opportunity for an online question. This is, as I read it, I have a question for the first presentation, so that's for you. What percentage of companies importing robots employ blue-collar workers? If this percentage is low, this may cause the estimation results to be insignificant. It's a bit similar, yes, to the comment that already was made. Anyhow, let me stop there. There was a request for clarification on data and extension, yes, of agglomeration approach to Morocco. And so maybe we start with you. We lost the microphone somewhere. Oh, okay, hang on to it. We come to you afterwards. Okay.
Thank you for your question, Aystoja. Let me explain. enterprise information system is not a data set. Here is AIS is a platform which combines the different data sets from different institutions, such as Custom and Trade Ministry, Social Security Institution, and Revenue Department of Treasury Ministry. Okay. For the second question, I couldn't check the blue color share of firms, but as we expected from the Turkish demographic of Turkish firms, large firms are less likely to have blue collar workers. Okay. And that's it, I guess, for the.
I can give maybe more details about the data. So about the EIS, the data set. So it's a matched employer-employee data set. As my friend said, so it gets data from different platforms, including SGK, like the Social Security, for example, the Science Ministry, Small and Medium Enterprises Development Organization, COSGAP. So it includes information on the balance sheet, the trade statistics of the export-import of the firms, the employee, and it's a matched data set. So it provides data from 2006 onwards, but some of the panel features are present from different years onwards. So from, for example, 2019 onwards, there are about 11 million, 10 million observations for each year. So it's a big data set. The unit of observation. Firm, so there's firm and also the employee. So it's a matched data set. Mm-hmm. And since it's a confidential data set, you cannot get it. So you have to go work on site. So, no, at the Ministry of Science, Technology and Industry. Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. If I remember correctly, we had two questions. You had a question? Okay, well, come to Rabeh later. Okay. Since you're closer to.
I start? Yeah, thank you. Abdsamad Saidi from Central Bank of Morocco. I have a question to the first speaker on the relation between minimum wage and adoption of robotics. My question is, do you think that informal sector, which is, I think, could be very important in your country, could affect your analysis? I think to the kind of maybe consideration, is it de jure informal job or de facto paid with minimum wage or de jure paid with minimum wage? This is my question. Do you think that informal sector could affect your result? Yeah.
Sorry. So I want to start with a general comment about all the papers and maybe more than even this session. I mean, I've noticed that the papers in this kind of theme are dominated by papers on Turkey and Egypt, and that is not a coincidence. That is not because Turkish researchers or Egyptian researchers are better than others. It's because of data availability. And this is why we don't have any papers on Morocco, because there is no data available on Morocco. And I think I want to just highlight that. But I also want the researchers to say a lot more then about how they access their data. I mean, the fact that this data is an enclave data where you can only access it on site in Turkey is important to say, and because that creates another mechanism by which researchers are able to access confidential administrative data, which doesn't exist in any other country as far as I know, at least in an organized way. In the case of Egypt, the researchers didn't even mention that this is an ERF supported, at least you didn't say it in the presentation, maybe in the paper, that this is a very big effort on the part of ERF to create these panels, or these data, not panels, but at least these pooled cross sections of data from a number of countries. So anyway, I think that that's very important to push that point, that data availability is what makes these researchers possible, and that's what we see in these sessions. Having made that general comments, I have a couple of specific comments. On the paper on Egypt, and I'm really delighted that researchers from outside Egypt are using Egyptian data to do work, and this is great. That I think that the wage data in the labor force survey is not the strongest, and it's not the strongest because of the way they collect data from any person in the household, and usually it's not the wage worker themselves, it's responding, it's some proxy in their family. So you tend to have attenuation and regression towards the mean. So that's why inequality statistics are going to be not the best from these wage data. So I would recommend that you replicate your results using the labor market panel surveys, which are collecting data from the individual, him or herself, and therefore you'd likely have more variability in the data that is more trustworthy. So, and these data sets are also available from the ERF platform. They're not as frequent in terms of time, but you can get the time periods that you are looking at. Now, on the last paper on agglomeration economies, I mean, it strikes me that the specialization and the diversity variables are almost the same side, the two sides of the same coin. Have you tried your specification by dropping one of them and just using one to see whether you can get more action on either of them or different action? This is just a comment. Thank you.
I'd just like to say that I enjoyed reading all of the papers, and it made me think, because I'm working on the ground, of how much similarity there are in the conditions in Egypt with Turkey, and Turkey's ahead. We're working a big way with the poor in the south, and as I mentioned this morning, on the ground, and the ready-made garments industry is starting. Actually, where I work mostly, which is one governorate, Qina, there was not one ready-made garments factory, although it was the second poorest governorate, like 10 years ago. What I find on the ground by talking to Turkish business people in the ready-made garments industry, they've come to us because they're way ahead. So for them in Turkey, the wages are becoming too high to be competitive. So it's win-win that they bring us the job because they have the market. And I like it. I mean, it's win-win. Instead of the factories in Turkey, just they can turn to more advanced manufacturing in particular areas, maybe even within the textile and garment industry. And we're welcoming them because they have markets. And we're so close, you know. So it's good news.
That's very nice. So glad you mentioned it. The second export industry.
Can I just add a very quick comment on Ragi's excellent point? I second what you said, but I wanted to add another access issue. Iran has more data publicly available than any country in the Middle East, including it has access to enterprise surveys by people being approved to work in the basement of the statistical center. So in many ways, it's fairly advanced. Unfortunately, it doesn't have access to presentations. We go to Cairo, we come here, Iranians can't get visa, and I thought that should also be added to the issues that ERF needs to consider. Thank you.
are we here?
Okay. Did you change your mind? No, I changed my mind.
Then did are we?
We started 60 minutes late. We are finishing 2 minutes late. It's a little bit like airplanes. You leave late, but you actually arrive early. So, we'll have a nice lunch and see you at the afternoon session. Thank you.